Philip Broberg is about to change everything. It's heading into next season. Jim Montgomery has a star in the making on defense, and these advanced stats on Philip Broberg will blow your mind, and it is pointing towards superstar potential in the young defenseman. We're going to break down all these stats. Philip Broberg, what his next contract will look like, and so much more later on this episode. Before we get into that, if you're part of the 50.7% watching this and you haven't hit the sub button yet, we're trying to reach our goal of 4,000 subscribers. We're going to say 5,000 subscribers before the season starts. So make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. It helps a bunch. The support has been incredible, and we'll keep you up to date on everything to do around your St. Louis Blues. But with that, Darius, let's just hop straight into this, where we did do a video yesterday talking on Dylan Holloway. But continuing in on the NHL Advanced Stats Edge stats, it does go into a Broberg among the best in skating speeds. Now we know Philip Broberg, one of the best pickups last offseason as an offer sheet. Doug looking like a genius, joining this team, 29 points, playing over 20 minutes a game. Before we go into the advanced stats and how Broberg is, what is your initial thoughts on him?
Well, first of all, plus 21, take a look at that. I don't put too much, stock into plus minus, but based on where the St. Louis Blues were at one point last season, pretty impressive. And for a player this young and obviously acquired, I mean, he's not that young, of course, but young in the league at least, obviously acquired from the Edmonton Oilers via offer sheet, plays a ton of minutes for the St. Louis Blues on the second pairing as well. He is going to be a first pairing defenseman at some point in his career, probably very soon. Cam Fowler, Colton Parayko, these guys are not getting any younger. This guy is going to be the guy for the St. Louis Blues. And I think that was always the plan, even when he was in Edmonton. And of course, last season, in terms of point production, he didn't play in every single game, but pretty good point production from the young defenseman. And I feel like he could be in the 50 to 60 point range. You can see this last season, 29 points in 68 games, of course, which it's pretty good, right? Of course, but I do think he's going to take another step forward. Similarly to Dylan Holloway, who we touched on yesterday, he's going to take another step forward offensively, even defensively. There's still a lot to work on in his game, right? Doesn't mean that he's a bad player. That's not what I'm saying, of course. Quite the opposite, but I feel like he's going to take a step forward in point production. One of the fastest defensemen in the league as well. If you take a look at the advanced analytics, we'll get into that as well. But he's just a young budding star in this league, 24 years old, and he is going to be a superstar in this league. And again, he's going to be the guy at some point. I think fans should be way more excited than they are about him right now already, because he's going to, fill into that role perfectly. He's got the size, all of these things, right? And we saw it in the playoffs. Like, he's just a great player.
That's the biggest thing with Broberg. He's going to progress and get better season after season. Only 24 years old. Going into the advanced stats on his speed, he emerged as one of the fastest players at his position in an expanded role last season. 23.48 miles per hour, 96th percentile. And you can go into the speed burst, 92 percentile. This is not only an offensive defenseman that's going to end up putting up 50 to 60 points in his peak, but the speed is going to be a big part. You can see him torching players when he goes on the rush. Everything is pointing towards Broberg being a big step in the right direction for this Blues team. Listen, Fowler is not going to get younger. We know Parayko is slowly going to decline as he gets in age, and these guys are not going to decline this coming season, but in 3 to 4 years from now. And it goes straight into the fact that they do need to get Broberg locked into a contract after this season. $4.5 million this season, just shy of 4.6. We know the projections have him at 7.3 on a 5-year deal. Now, once again, like we spoke on Holloway, I would be completely fine with doing an 8-year deal on this. Darius, I don't know, would you go out to give him once again maybe 7.5 to 8 million to lock him up on this team for the next 8 years with Dylan Holloway?
Yeah, for those of you who watched our video on Dylan Holloway, I think very similarly that they should, make a contract or get a contract done that's very similar to the one that we were discussing in that video, which is go up and go up in terms of years and the AAV. From what you see here, the projection, of course, the player and his agent, we know this league wide now, are going to be pushing for 4 and 5 year deals, if not less than that. Of course, I think, some players that are more skilled and highly touted in the league might be asking for less because they know that, they're basically guaranteed to make more money. But a guy like Broberg and Holloway, you have to push them to 7-8 year contracts. And the biggest thing with that is this is the last year that you can offer these guys 8-year contracts. So you have to push for that, even if the AAV comes up, because as time goes on, these guys are still very young, 24 years old. If you sign him to 8 years, he's only going to be 32. He's going to be in his prime still, right? So if you can push for 8 years, and even if it's north of $9 million, that's a lot of cap going out the window, that's for sure, at one time, but you have them locked up, and those contracts will look brilliant as time goes on. And the other thing to keep in mind is Doug Armstrong handing over the keys to Alex Steen. He's done a great job at locking guys up to contracts. So many players on the St. Louis Blues team are locked up. They don't have to really worry about that. Even the goaltending, what they've done with the goaltending is awesome. Like, both guys are locked up to the same year. So obviously if things go south, they can just retool their goaltending at the same time, which is pretty brilliant. So love everything about that. But ultimately, I will say, you're going to have to go up in terms of money, and he's going to make a lot of money anyway, right? It just really depends how many years. So I do think, I will say, the player and his agent, watch for this, him and Holloway, because it's going to be a story throughout the year into next year. Both of them are going to be looking for shorter term deals so they can cash out when they're still, maybe in their late 20s even, or maybe early 30s, right? Watch for that. But I think if you're the Blues, Doug Armstrong, his last parting gift could be a long contract extension for both of them, especially Broberg. You want to lock a guy up like that, because finding premier defensemen like this in the league, very difficult, and the Blues have one in the organization right now.
And I think that's the biggest thing. With the cap jumping 10 million, it feels every single season for the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to see the cap hits go up when players are signing. But if you can lock Broberg up for this 8 or 9 million, have him as that defenseman of the future on this team to take over once Parayko and Fowler are done. This is going to be a huge step in the right direction for this team. As you can see, they already have a bunch of players locked up. 4 more years of Parayko. We know there's a Fowler extension that got to come at some point. You're almost off the Falk contract. You brought Logan Mailloux in. This team is moving in the direction of having elite talents and elite young players that are going to merge together perfectly. But even speaking on the defensive core, yes, Broberg is going to be the number 3 defenseman going into next season. He was that last year. But going further in, we know how good of a defensive core they have built. Parayko has been outstanding, going to headline Team Canada, going into the Olympics, and what's looking like the best trade deadline pickup in Cam Fowler. Overall, looking at the defense, we know how good Broberg is, one of the fastest defensemen in the league. Could you see Fowler and Parayko take maybe another step playing together after having a full offseason of training together and stints or half a season or a quarter of a season last year?
So one of my favorite storylines heading into new seasons is guys that you've acquired at the trade deadline, how they play and how they continue to mesh with other players on the team, especially defensemen and their defense partner, once they have a full preseason and training camp under their belt. And we're going to see that with Fowler now. Obviously, that first pairing was awesome. Cam Fowler was one of the best deadline acquisitions in the last 5 years, maybe, if not more. Like, absolutely unbelievable acquisition and what he did for this team. So to see him coming into this year's training camp and what he's going to be able to do with Parayko, they got a full training camp under their system. Obviously, they just went through an off season, but they're going to be able to work on systems together. Obviously, they did for the majority of last season once he was acquired, obviously, but this is different, right? This is different. You got a whole season under your belt, so that's going to be a fun to watch, a lot of fun to watch. And we'll see what they end up doing together. I would expect them to be brilliant. Again, if things do go a little bit south, obviously maybe Broberg moves up. That could be an option if it was lightning in a bottle, but I don't think that's the case. We had enough of a sample size to go, okay, this clearly works. This is a good pairing, and they're going to be able to explore it further. And I think that's one of my favorite personally. Let us know in the comments how you feel. But storylines heading into a new season is guys you've kind of acquired with term last season. How do they play in the system for a full season? Jim Montgomery, that's another big storyline, full season for him, working with some of these players too. So it should be pretty exciting.
I mean, this season's going to be a storybook. I feel you have so much young talent looking to take the next step. Young guys trying to break into the lineup. Overall, what is building in St. Louis feels special. It feels like they're going into another cup run. What is your guys' thoughts on all this? What is your thoughts on Broberg being one of the fastest defensemen in the league going into next season? Do you think he takes the next jump? Do you think he could put up 40, 50, 60 points? Let us know your predictions on him, Fowler, and Parayko going into next year. But leave that down in the comments. And speaking of comments, we'll hop straight into comments today. Lock up Broberg and Holloway for 8 years. Both are great talent, young. They can grow with all the kids. And I completely agree with this. I think the big thing is we're seeing a lot of teams give 8-year contracts to players 28, 29, 30. But the Blues have the opportunity to do this to two 24-year-olds who will still be in their prime, like you said. coming out of it. But what's your guys' thoughts on how Doug Armstrong has built this team? Are you excited what he does in his final season? How do you think Steen takes over? Let us know all this down below. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark Pye, with my co-host Darius, and take care.